She was the daughter of the richest man in the village. He was a beggar with torn clothes and dusty feet. When she chose to love him, her family threw her out like trash. They laughed, they mocked her, they said she had ruined her life forever. But nobody knew who he really was. Before we continue, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You don't want to miss what happens next. Comment "I'm watching" if you're ready for this story. In a quiet village called Adaeze, nestled between green hills and a river that never stopped singing, there lived a man everyone respected and feared at the same time. His name was Chief Obura, and he was known across the land as the wealthiest merchant for miles around. His compound had the tallest walls, his barns were always full, and his name alone could open doors that stayed shut for other men. But wealth was not the only thing Chief Obura was known for. He was also known for his pride and for a heart that measured people not by their character but by the weight of their pockets. Chief Obura had 3 children, but the one who carried his heart the most was his only daughter, Adaeze. She was beautiful in the way morning light is beautiful, soft and warm and impossible to ignore. But what made Adaeze truly different from her family was not her beauty, it was her heart. While her father counted coins and her brothers chased status, Adaeze noticed things nobody else cared to see. She noticed the old woman who limped through the market with a bad leg. She noticed the children who played barefoot in the dust because their families could not afford shoes. And she noticed him. He sat at the edge of the market every single day in the same worn spot, wrapped in clothes so torn they barely covered him. His name was Quabna, and to the village he was nothing more than a beggar. People walked past him without a glance, as if he was invisible, as if his presence did not matter. Some children threw stones at him for fun. Some traders shooed him away from their stalls like he was an animal, but Adaeze never looked at him that way. Every time she passed him, she saw something the others refused to see. She saw sadness in his eyes, yes, but she also saw dignity, a kind of quiet strength that poverty could not erase. One afternoon, while the market buzzed with noise and haggling, Adaeze stopped in front of him. She did not say a word at first. She simply placed a wrapped piece of bread and a small bowl of soup beside him. Quabna looked up at her, surprised. Nobody had ever done that for him without expecting something in return. "Thank you," he said softly, his voice carrying a strange calmness that did not match his appearance. Adaeze only smiled and walked away, but something inside her had shifted. She could not explain it, but she knew she would return, and she did. Day after day, Adaeze found small reasons to pass by that same spot in the market. She brought him food when she could. She brought him water when the sun was harsh. And slowly she began to talk to him. At first it was simple greetings, then it became longer conversations. She discovered that Quabna was not like the other beggars in the village. He spoke with wisdom that seemed too deep for his ragged appearance. He spoke about life, about patience, about the difference between what a man owns and who a man truly is. Adaeze found herself drawn to his words the way a thirsty traveler is drawn to water. Weeks passed, and what began as small kindness slowly grew into something more. Adaeze began sneaking away from her father's compound just to sit with Quabna near the river, away from prying eyes. They would talk for hours under the shade of the big Iroko tree, and time seemed to disappear whenever they were together. Adaeze started to feel something she had never felt before, not with any of the wealthy suitors her father had introduced her to. She felt seen. She felt understood. And somewhere along the way, without even realizing when it happened, she fell in love with a man the whole village called a beggar. Her personal maid, a loyal young woman named Adaeze, began to notice the change in Adaeze. She noticed the smile Adaeze wore after her secret walks. She noticed how Adaeze seemed distracted during family meals, staring into the distance as if her mind was somewhere else entirely. One evening, Adaeze confronted her gently. "Where have you been going, Adaeze? You come back with dust on your feet and stars in your eyes." Adaeze hesitated, but she trusted Adaeze like a sister, so she told her the truth. Adaze's face fell with worry. "Adaeze, you know what your father will do if he finds out. A beggar, your father would rather bury you than let you marry a man with nothing." Adaeze knew Adaeze was right, but by then her heart was no longer listening to fear. It was listening to love. But secrets in a small village never stay hidden for long. Adeeze's younger brother Chidi had always been suspicious of his sister's frequent disappearances. One afternoon, curiosity got the better of him and he decided to follow her. He trailed behind her quietly as she left the compound, staying far enough not to be noticed. His suspicion turned into shock when he saw his sister sitting beside the river, laughing softly with the beggar from the market. Chidi's blood boiled. He did not wait to hear another word. He ran straight home to tell their father everything he had seen. That evening, the compound of Chief Obura exploded with fury. Chidi told his father everything, every detail, exaggerating nothing because the truth alone was enough to shame the family name. Chief Obura's face turned dark with anger as he listened. When Adaeze returned home that night humming softly to herself, she was met not with the usual quiet of the compound but with her father standing in the courtyard, arms crossed, eyes burning with rage. "Is it true?" he asked, his voice low and dangerous. Adaeze's heart sank, but she refused to lie. "Yes, father, I have been seeing him." The courtyard fell into a heavy silence before Chief Obura exploded. "A beggar? You disgrace this family for a beggar. Do you know what people will say? Do you know what this does to our name?" Adaeze tried to explain, tried to tell her father that Quebna was not what he seemed, that he had wisdom and kindness that no wealth could buy. But her father was not listening. All he could see was the shame he believed she had brought upon him. "You will end this foolishness immediately," Chief Obura commanded. "Tomorrow I will announce your engagement to Chief Nnamdi's son. He is wealthy, respected, and worthy of this family's name." Adaeze's heart shattered at those words, but something stronger than fear rose within her. She looked her father directly in the eyes and said the words that would change everything. "I will not marry a man I do not love, father. I love Quebna and no title or wealth can change that." The room went silent. Chief Obura stared at his daughter as if she had spoken a foreign language he could not comprehend. Never had anyone defied him so boldly, especially not his own daughter. His pride, wounded and burning, could not accept such disobedience. "Then you are no longer my daughter," he said coldly. "Tomorrow, in front of the entire village, I will make sure everyone knows that Adaeze is no longer part of this family." The next morning, the village gathered in the market square, summoned by Chief Obura himself. Whispers spread through the crowd as people wondered what important announcement could bring the wealthy merchant out so early. Adaeze stood before the crowd, her head held high despite the fear twisting inside her stomach. Chief Obura's voice boomed across the square as he declared that his daughter had shamed the family by falling in love with a beggar, and from that moment she was disowned. Her name would be removed from the family register. She would receive nothing. She was, in his words, dead to this family. The crowd gasped, then began to whisper among themselves. Some looked at Adaeze with pity, others with mockery. "She gave up wealth for a beggar," one woman laughed. "She has ruined her life forever," another muttered. Chidi refused to even look at his sister, his loyalty firmly with their father. Adaeze felt the weight of every stare, every whisper, every judgment crashing down on her at once, but even as tears streamed down her face, she did not regret her decision. She turned away from the crowd, away from the compound that had once been her home, and walked toward the edge of the village where Quebna waited, unaware of the storm that had just unfolded because of their love. When Adaeze arrived at Quebna's small hut, exhausted and broken, she told him everything. Quebna listened quietly, his heart heavy with guilt. "I never wanted this for you," he said softly, his eyes reflecting pain. "You gave up everything for someone like me." Adaeze took his hand and looked into his eyes. "I did not give up everything. I gained something more valuable than gold. I gained a love that is real." Despite the heaviness of the moment, Quebna felt something shift within him too, a renewed determination to protect this woman who had sacrificed so much for him. From that day forward, Adaeze's life changed completely. She moved into Quebna's tiny hut at the edge of the village, a stark contrast to the grand compound she had grown up in. The hut had only one room, a worn mat for sleeping, and barely enough food some days. But despite the hardship, something beautiful began to grow between them. Every morning they woke up together, facing whatever challenges the day brought with unity instead of division. Adaeze learned to fetch water from the river, to cook with the little they had, to mend torn clothes with careful hands. And through it all, she never once complained. Quebna, in turn, showed her a different kind of wealth, one built on patience, respect, and unwavering support. He taught her things she never learned in her father's compound, lessons about resilience, about finding joy in simple moments, about love that did not depend on material things. Slowly, the villagers who once mocked Adaeze began to notice something strange. Despite their poverty, she seemed happier than she had ever been as the daughter of a wealthy chief. Her laughter echoed genuinely through the small hut, unlike the polite, empty smiles she used to wear at family gatherings. But as weeks turned into months, something began to shift. Adaeze started noticing small things about Quebna that did not add up. Sometimes, in his sleep, he would mutter words in a language she did not recognize, words that sounded regal, commanding. Other times, when they encountered wild animals near the forest, Quebna showed skills in combat that no ordinary beggar should possess, moving with precision and confidence that spoke of training, not survival instinct. And once, while cleaning his old tattered bag, Adaeze found a small golden ring hidden beneath torn cloth, engraved with symbols she had never seen before. When she asked him about these things, Quebna's expression would grow distant, almost sorrowful, before he would quickly change the subject. Adaeze did not push him, sensing that whatever secrets he carried were heavy enough to burden his heart already. But deep inside, she knew there was more to Quebna than the beggar the village believed him to be. One evening, as the sun began to set behind the hills, a stranger arrived in Adaeze village. He was dressed differently from the villagers, wearing fine cloth embroidered with unfamiliar patterns, and he carried himself with an air of authority that immediately drew attention. The stranger moved through the village asking quiet questions, watching carefully as if searching for someone specific. When his eyes finally landed on Quebna sitting outside his small hut, something in his expression changed completely. He straightened his posture and approached with unmistakable respect, bowing low before the man everyone else called a beggar. The villagers who witnessed this moment stood frozen in confusion. Why would a well-dressed stranger bow before the poorest man in the village? Word spread quickly, and soon a crowd gathered to watch the strange scene unfold. The stranger spoke in a hushed but urgent tone. "Your Highness, we have searched for months. The kingdom needs you. Your father, the king, grows weaker each day, and the council awaits your return." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Adaeze, standing beside Quebna, felt her heart stop. "Highness, king," the words echoed in her mind as she turned to look at the man she had loved as a simple beggar. Quebna's face was filled with a mixture of sadness and resignation, as if a truth he had been running from had finally caught up to him. He took a deep breath and finally spoke, his voice carrying a weight and authority that silenced the crowd instantly. "My name is not simply Quebna," he began. "I am Prince Quebna Adaeze, son of King Adaeze of the Disowned kingdom." The crowd erupted into shocked whispers, disbelief written across every face. Chief Obera, who had rushed to the scene upon hearing the commotion, stood stunned, unable to process what he was hearing. Quebna continued, his voice steady despite the emotion behind his words. "Years ago, I fled my kingdom because I could not bear to be forced into a marriage arranged purely for political gain, a marriage without love, without choice. I disguised myself as a beggar because I wanted to know what it felt like to be seen for who I truly am, not for the crown I would one day wear. I wanted to find someone who would love me not because of my title but despite having none at all." He turned to look at Adaeze, his eyes filled with a tenderness that made her heart ache, "and I found her. Adaeze loved me when I had nothing to offer her but torn clothes and empty hands. She sacrificed her family, her wealth, her entire life, all for a man she believed was a beggar. That is a love no crown could ever buy." The crowd fell into stunned silence, processing the magnitude of what they had just witnessed. Chief Obera's face drained of color as the reality of his actions crashed over him. He had disowned his own daughter, humiliated her in front of the entire village, all because she loved a man he assumed had nothing when in truth that man was heir to an entire kingdom. Overwhelmed with shame, Chief Obera stepped forward, his voice trembling. "Prince Quebna, forgive me. I did not know. If I had known," but Quebna raised his hand gently, cutting him off. "Would it have mattered? Would you have accepted me if you knew I was poor by choice, testing hearts rather than poor by circumstance? Adaeze loved me without needing to know any of this. That is the difference between her heart and the hearts of those who judge only by appearance." Chief Obera fell to his knees, his pride finally broken, tears streaming down his face as he begged forgiveness from his daughter. "Adaeze, my daughter, please forgive this foolish old man. I let greed and pride blind me to what truly mattered. I was wrong to disown you. I was wrong to judge a man's worth by his clothes instead of his character." Adaeze looked at her father, years of hurt and abandonment swirling within her, but so was the compassion she had always carried in her heart. She helped her father to his feet, her voice soft but firm. "Father, I forgive you. But you must understand, wealth and status mean nothing if they blind us to love, kindness, and true character. I hope this lesson stays with you and with everyone here today." The village, still processing the shocking revelation, watched as Prince Quebna took Adaeze's hand in his. "Adaeze, will you return with me to the Disowned kingdom, not as a beggar's companion but as my bride, my future queen?" Tears filled Adaeze's eyes as she nodded, unable to find words powerful enough to express the emotions flooding through her heart. Word of the prince's return and his chosen bride spread like wildfire across the kingdom. Preparations began immediately for a grand royal wedding, one that would be remembered for generations. The same village that had once mocked Adaeze for loving a beggar now stood in awe, realizing they had witnessed a love story more powerful than any fairy tale. Chief Obera, humbled beyond measure, was invited to the wedding not as a display of forgiveness for show, but because Adaeze truly wanted her family present despite everything that had happened. On the day of the wedding, the Disowned kingdom shone brighter than ever before. Colorful fabrics decorated every corner, drums echoed with joyful rhythms, and people from distant lands gathered to witness the union of Prince Quebna and his beloved Adaeze. She walked down the aisle not in the simple clothes she had worn during her time in the small hut, but in royal garments that reflected the queen she was about to become. Yet despite the grandeur surrounding her, Adaeze's heart remained unchanged. She was still the same woman who had shared bread with a stranger the village called a beggar, the same woman whose love had never depended on wealth or title. As the ceremony concluded and the kingdom celebrated late into the night, Quebna took a moment alone with Adaeze, away from the crowds and the noise. He held her hands gently and said, "Thank you for loving me before you knew I was a prince. That love means more to me than any crown or kingdom ever could." Adaeze smiled, resting her head against his shoulder. "I did not fall in love with a prince, Quebna. I fell in love with you, the man who saw me for who I was, just as I saw you." Chief Obera, watching from a distance, felt his heart swell with a mixture of pride and regret. He had learned, in the hardest way possible, that true wealth is not measured by gold or status, but by the depth of character and the sincerity of love. He vowed from that day forward to judge people not by their appearance or circumstances, but by the goodness within their hearts, a lesson his daughter had known all along. The story of Adaeze and Prince Quebna spread far beyond the borders of the Disowned kingdom, becoming a tale told by parents to their children, a reminder that true love sees beyond wealth, beyond status, beyond appearances. It teaches us that the richest hearts are often found in the humblest places, and that sometimes the person the world overlooks holds the greatest treasure of all. And so, in the end, Adaeze proved that a family's disapproval, a village's mockery, and society's judgment could never diminish the power of genuine love. Her courage to love beyond appearances did not just change her own destiny but reshaped the beliefs of everyone who witnessed her journey, proving that sometimes the greatest kingdoms are built not on gold but on the strength of a heart brave enough to love without conditions. If this story touched your heart, smash that like button and subscribe for more powerful tales. Share your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next story.